I'd like to introduce Professor Michael Crawford, the Director of the Institute for Brain Chemistry and Human Nutrition at London's famous Imperial College. Michael has a distinguished career, an Air Force pilot, a worker for human health in Africa, and above all, the godfather of DHA. In 1972, he made the molecular connection between the eating of fish, marine products, and intelligence. Michael was right. Eat fish, grow smarter, listen to the godfather of DHA, the iconic person in the establishment of nutrition for brain health on this planet.
The origin of the brain in the sea 500 million years ago gives us a clue to the tragedy that we're seeing today in the terms of the rise in mental ill health. The origin of Homo sapiens himself had to be dependent on access to the marine food web. All 5 written languages evolved beside water. And since then, the growth of civilization has always been close to water and close to the marine food web. You have to have the building bricks for the brain, just the same way you build a house. You have to have bricks. And for the brain, you need DHA and the other micronutrients that are present in richest form in the marine food web and barely available on this intensively reared land-based stuff. And that, we believe, is the rise in mental ill health, which is now the #1 burden of ill health in the West.
Even in Britain alone, it is officially assessed at £113 billion a year. But I have found that that estimate is omitting a number of very serious things which I'm quite sure, in fact I demonstrate scientifically, are connected with, interconnected with other forms of problem and illness.
And the balance between what we got from the sea and what we got from the land began to change. And today, we believe this balance is now so distorted that it is one of the principal factors responsible for the rise in mental ill health. Where do we get DHA from? Well, the richest source of docosahexaenoic acids is the marine food web. You actually also get it from hen's eggs, and you get it from small animals, small birds and rodents and things like that. But you don't get it from any of the big prey animals such as sheep, pigs, beef and so on. The land food web is really pretty poor so far as a source of docosahexaenoic acid. The marine food web is where you get it in its richest form. Now there's a lot of talk about DHA and so fish oils and things like that. But I just want to make a point here that we don't actually, when we eat fish and seafood, eat fish oils. We eat fish and seafood, and we eat the mussel. Now, fish oil contains about 8% DHA. It's the sort of stuff you put round your waistline. It's triglyceride in technical terms. And in other words, it's fat. However, if you look at cod mussel, for example, the white mussel, inside the cod mussel, you find the membranes built with phospholipids, which contain DHA at no less than 47% of all the fatty acids. So the meat of the fish and the seafoods is the richest source of docosahexaenoic acid on the planet. And it's not only docosahexaenoic acid, incidentally, it's also rich in iodine, selenium, zinc and things like this. And it's quite important to recognize that the significance of the marine food web, because if you look at the converse, which is iodine deficiency, which is so well known about, and been known about for an awfully long time, There are 2 billion people today risk to iodine deficiency, and iodine deficiency causes mental retardation. And these 2 billion people are basically all living inland. Interestingly enough, in London, at the turn of the century, last century, 1900, the barmen in the East End of London used to go down to the Thames and fill their buckets full of oysters and put them on the bar free for people to have with their beer. It is just astonishing how they have been a kind of marker, a sort of canary, if you like, in the minds of the destruction of the marine food web and the way that they have been lost from our culture. And we can bring them back.
We have 19,000 miles of UK coastline, very little of it properly exploited for marine nutrition. Some of it's wasted, some of it's polluted. It's going for grabs. The oyster is a source of DHA, the most valuable food product for humankind. The oyster, by the mere fact of growing its shell, absorbs CO2 emissions. Just imagine if we could create 800 new oyster estuaries around the world, we would do the equivalent of building and growing Brazilian rainforests on an industrial scale.
So every time you eat an oyster, pull it out of the ocean, you're pulling out carbon dioxide. So in this way, you can actually help defeat climate change.